Welcome to SQL with Python. In the first video, I made an introduction to SQL with Python, and then we saw that we could actually connect with Python using SQLite or SQLAlchemy. These are libraries in Python that help us to connect with the SQL database. So in the second video, I focused on SQLite. I went through how to connect with databases, how to create cursor to use on the database, and how to execute SQL queries in such databases. In this video, I'll be focusing on Alchemy, which is used for some more advanced stuff. So this video is about advanced database management with SQL Alchemy. All right. So introduction to SQL Alchemy and ORM. What is SQL Alchemy, first of all? So SQL Alchemy is a popular library in Python used to interact with databases, and it provides two main components. First of all, it provides SQL expression language, which is the SQL Alchemy core. And this allows you to write SQL queries directly in Python. So you can write SQL directly in Python because of this. For SQLite, right, we needed to use the cursor.execute, and then we now put the SQL queries in some kind of string format. Then it's also SQL Alchemy also provides us object-relational mapping, that is ORM. Just like we know, SQL is a relational database, which is simply that it's a database in rows and columns, right? Um, so object relational mapping, which allows you to define Python classes that represent tables in your database. So ORM eliminates the need to write SQL queries manually. So with ORM, we don't need to write SQL queries manually. And instead, you can interact with the database using Python objects. All right. Um, so um, my focus would actually be on SQLite a lot, but I'll see how this goes and see if we have to dig deeper into alchemy. All right. Or if I get many people asking for to know more about alchemy, I could dig deeper into it for sure. So to install SQL Alchemy, now SQLite is inbuilt into Python, so you don't need to install it. But for SQL Alchemy, you need to install it like most other libraries we've been using. So to install SQL Alchemy, you can use pip. Of course, to install anything in Python, you use pip install, then you name the library. So here we use pip install SQL Alchemy. So control enter, and then you have that star there. So it means it's taking some time. All right. Well, I had it installed before. That's why it just tells me requirements already satisfied. So, but in your case, if you're just starting afresh, so it will take a bit of time, and then it would, the report will be longer than this, right? So I have it installed now. So from there, I can go on to creating databases and tables using Python and SQL Alchemy. All right. So having installed, so with creating database and tables using Python and SQL Alchemy. So the first step is to set up the SQL Alchemy, right? After installing, the next thing is to import. So first import the necessary module. So here we import SQL Alchemy. So from SQL Alchemy, we import create engine, column, integer, string. All these are necessary. Then from SQL Alchemy.axt.declarative, we import declarative base. From SQL Alchemy.orm, we import session maker and declarative base. Okay. I guess one of these two, I think the one in line 4 is already deprecated, meaning that it's no longer in use. But let me just leave it like that because I think I encountered that a lot. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'll comment this out because it's redundant, because it's the same declarative bit that is coming from there. So, but in case we have an issue later, I can come back there. But I have a feeling we don't need that. We won't need it. I strongly feel that we don't need it because declarative base is now found in SQLAlchemy.orm, the one in line 4. So I run this now. So once I do that, 2 appears, it means it's been mounted. So what does create engine do? The create engine creates a connection to the database. In SQLite, we needed to establish a connection explicitly by using, I think, SQLite.connect, and then we name the database and we give it a name. So we now use that name to create a cursor. Then we use the cursor to execute the SQL commands, right? Or rather queries. I think they're better known as queries. So you have the column, integer, and string that we have here from SQL Alchemy. They define columns in your database tables, and then we have the declarative base, which is the base class for ORM models. Okay, now I mean with this now, I think I have final. idea to know that we don't really need it because SQLAlchemy.orm, you know, that's where we get declarative base from. So the base for class, base class for ORM models. So I run that again. And then the session maker, it's used to create a session for interacting with the database. So it's more like in SQLite, right? When you connect with the database, and by the time you're done, you close the database. That is how you start and close the session for SQLite. But for SQLAlchemy, you need a session maker to create a session for interacting with the database. Okay. So afterwards, we talk about defining the database model, like the table that we want to use. So here you define your tables as Python classes. I don't know. Like when I did data and scientific computing with Python, I must have made mention of Python classes or something like that. I'm not too sure, but it's something I teach in my data analysis classes. So if it's there, then maybe I guess let me see if I can trace that. Talking about the playlist on scientific computing. Okay, so I go here. This I want to be very sure of that. So for this playlist now, data analysis with I mean, scientific computing with Python, that's what I mean. Yeah, we have it here. So I think I must have talked about Python. Uh, I must have talked about Python. Oh, I did functions and modules, control flows, basic Python operations, control flows. Okay. All right. I think I did not bother about Python classes, possibly. Could it be under this? Let me see. Basic Python operations. Yeah, I think it's normally under it's normally under object-oriented programming. Yeah, okay. I didn't do that. Maybe I'll find a way of bringing it up at some point, right? But I mean, it's something that is really useful for core, like for maybe if I was teaching software engineering, which I'm not really interested in. So if I was teaching software engineering, classes would be useful. So, so here we define the database model, the table, and here you define your tables as Python classes. Each class represents a table, and the attributes represent the columns of the table. So here, in teaching object-oriented programming, right? We talk about classes, we talk about their attributes, the parameters, and things like that. Okay, so um, and the way to do that is we have a base, right? We have a base, we have the SQLAlchemy.orm.declarative base. We already call declarative base from the SQLAlchemy.orm. So and then we create a user class here now. That's our option. That's if whatever you want to call that, because anytime you clear, if you do def, that's a function, but if you do class, that's a class you're creating, and you're at liberty to use whatever you want to use for as username. So here we're using user, and then we have base, and then this is some kind of initializer. So we have table name is equal to user. So you're creating users table. Of course, this is a bit more technical than what we did in SQLite, but they are basically the same. And then I think the beauty is that this one does a bit more advanced stuff like that. But once you understand what we did previously, then this should be easier to understand too. So you have the table name called users and the ID. You have the first thing in the table is the ID. It's a column which is integer and it is primary key true, meaning that it is this ID is unique to each user in the table. So no two people share the same primary key. So it's a unique identifier. Then you have a name. So the name is also a column and it is a string, it is of string data type. And you have age, which is column integer. And then apart from that, you now define a function inside a class, right? And so you initialize that to self and then username self.name age.self.age like that. Then optionally you can create tables. So and to do that, you say engine equals create engine, and you're creating it based on SQLite memory. So I mean, SQLite is the basic thing. That's why I'm going to be focusing on that a whole lot. And if there's any need, I may come back to Alchemy. But before you forget, I already ran this, so this should also be run. Yeah. So that is us. defining the database model and how it will go. So how the table is going to look like. This is where, like in the case of SQL, where we created the table if it didn't exist, and then we declared the columns and everything. So we didn't. It wasn't this elaborate in that case. It was just more like a bit more uh direct. All right. So double underscore table name double underscore specifies the table name in the database. Each column identifies a column in the table, right? So like ID name age, they identify a column in the table. And then the next thing we want to do is to create a database engine, right? Now you create the database engine that will manage the connection to your database. So here you say engine equals create engine. Don't forget this create engine is actually a function that we actually called from SQLAlchemy directly. So it's a function in the SQLAlchemy library. So it specifies the name, yeah. So engine equals create engine from the SQLite, my database 3, DB. So I think I will come across my database 3 here. So now I'm calling this database 3. So this my database 3 is what I'm now connecting to. By the way, we have previously created my database 1, my database 2. So my database 3 doesn't exist yet. So if I run that, once I run that now, we can now have my database 3 most likely. All right. So in this case, we are using SQLite and the database will be saved as my database. Yeah, it's going to be saved as my database 3. All right. So you can see we still have reference, we are still making reference to SQLite. So it tells you that it's like of course, it is the most used SQL library because it is very portable, very easy to have on phones and all that. So if I run this now, we have SQL3 created automatically. If we come back and check, now we have, oh, my database, my underscore database underscore 3. Oh, not yet. Maybe it doesn't get created yet. So we just create the engine. Okay, yeah. So let's see. I don't know. I suspect that should have been created already. Uh, or maybe if I should close all this, it will be good. So I go back to the desktop again, and yeah. So SQL, SQL with Python. Okay, it's not there yet. Okay, no worries. All right. Then So then we create a table in the database now. So we now want to create a table in the database. So you can create a table by calling base.metadata.create all engine. And then I, oh, is there an inconsistency somewhere? I'm trying to be sure. This is my database, my underscore database underscore 3. Yeah, this is the first time we're calling that. Okay, so yeah, let's just go on. If there's something that comes up, then we can go back to it. All right. So create a table in the database. So you can create a table by calling base.metadata.create underscore all engine. And then we have this. So the table is created now with all the information like that. Right. So we have some, maybe some extra information up there. Okay. Then, I mean, you don't have to now explicitly commit it. Like in SQLite, you have to do some commits to actually make sure it's done there. So this creates the user stable in my database 3. Okay, my database 3. So I think at that point, by running this, I think it should have been created. Let's check to confirm now. Yeah, so now we have my database 3, right? So we needed to run this base.metadata.create underscore all into engine to create that. Cool. So next thing is we want to perform operations with SQLAlchemy ORM. That's I keep forgetting what ORM is. Object-Relational Mapping. Object-Relational Mapping. Yeah, I think that is where it also ties or into what is this called now? Objects in this thing in programming, object object-oriented programming, OOM or something like that, which we have in Python too, right? So that's why they can tie up together, and that's why we use classes to run SQLAlchemy. So performing operations with SQLAlchemy ORM. So the first thing we want to do is we want to create a session. So to create a session here, that one of connecting with database now is creating session. So a session allows you to interact with the database. It's like a workspace where you perform operations. So I can, okay, yeah, I can, just do, I can do this. That is numbering, right? Why am I forgetting many things today? Numbering and some bullets. Yeah, these are bullets now. Okay. So we want to create a session. So the session, we call it a variable name session with capital S. And then we use session maker. Remember, we already called session maker from one of the, if I'm here. So from SQLAlchemy.orm, that's the objects relational mapping. From that, we create session maker, which we need to use. So, and then we now say that session maker now bind to the engine. And then we now say session. So we now have another one now. We say session is equal to that session like this. So we run this and it's done. And then we come here. Here we we can now create Python objects that represent data and add them to the database. So once all of that is done, we can now say new user is user. So I mean, this user, remember, it's actually the username we declared when we created the class. You know, as you can see here, this user class like that. So that's what we had up there. All right. So and here now we want to input a name like Jane Doe, age 28, and the session. So to that session now we add new user and then we commit. So we commit this now. Okay, so we now have Jane Doe in that new table we have created in the database tree. So this code creates a new user and adds it to the database. So you can now query the database in this case. So you can query the database to retrieve data using the session. So you say users equals session.query user all. So for user in users, then you print the user now. So this is querying the whole data set. So now it gives you name is John Doe, age is 28. So the session query user all fetches all users from the users table. So under SQLite, that was more like your fetch all that we did in that situation. So I also want to believe that if I change this now, we have Jane Doe, we now have John Doe, and then maybe John Doe is 33. So probably like we are creating a family register. So by doing this, I've also added John Doe age 33. So if I come back here now, I won't just have Jane Doe. I now have John Doe age 28, John Doe age 33. So maybe we now want to add say we have who? Let's say we want to add maybe another family, right? Maybe we want to add families in the neighborhood. So we'll have say I'm looking for, so we have Martin Benasu. Martin Benasu. That's like the father who is 42. So we commit that. Then I come again, I add, say I have say the Lakbo Benasu. No, no, they're not, that's a mistake, but it's registered. So let's say they are of the same age, no worries. Then maybe they now have kids like Seyon Benasu, who is 22. They have uh Senami Benasu, who is say 19. All right. And maybe they now have say Donna Benasu, who is 19. Okay, let's assume they are twins, right? And maybe one more kid. Let me add one more kid. Say they have a child that is named let me see. Um Sesede Benasu, who is 14, right? So I mean all these things I've done. And by the time I go back to query, I'm going to have all these names added, right? So you can always vary that. So we have the Doe family. Maybe they are newly married couple, John and Jane Doe, and we have Mautin Benasu, Dolapo Benasu. They are another family, and they have 4 kids, something like that. All right. So and using fetch all, now we bring all of this out. But I mean, it looks like the SQLite version is somewhat neater. I think so. So that's why I'll be focusing on that a lot. So, just like I did before, right? I can now do complete example, just like I did the previous video. I always like to do this complete example. So, using SQLAlchemy ORM, that's object relational mapping. So, here is a complete example of using Alchemy to define a table and add a user and query the data. So instead of doing it bit by bit like we did before, this is us doing it all together. And then in this case, we are closing. We can, so session close. Once you're done with the session in line 32, you do your session close like that. Okay. So everything like we've been going through, I'll just go ahead and run it straight up. And then we have this. So you can now see even the Jendo will now be added again. So we have Jendo doubled because it's the same database tree. So in conclusion, so far, we have learned how to connect Python to an SQL database using SQLi3 and SQLAlchemy. SQLi3 is suitable for simple applications, so like phone applications and things like that, while SQLAlchemy provides advanced tools for managing databases with Python's object-relational mapping features. All right, so using SQLAlchemy, you can create, query, and manipulate data with Python objects. So this one uses Python objects. All right, making your database interactions cleaner and easier to maintain. So, I mean, if you do very advanced stuff, maybe SQLAlchemy will make more sense. But to me, I think I just like SQL, like, and the fact that it is most deployed SQL database you can find out there. So with this, we come to the end of this video about advanced database management with SQLAlchemy, right? So let me know in the comment section how helpful this is for you. And let me know if there's something you'd like me to do. I may be able to go ahead and do that. And to remind you, I now have membership on my channel. Feel free to join for some special privileges. So part of it would include things like maybe seeing, you can even see a video before others see it. You can see a video like 24 hours or more before others see it. And then there may be some videos, depending on the membership you join. There may be some videos that are just for members of the channel alone. So then you can have access to my math notes, my PDF notes. Instead of just seeing the video, you have access to the notes and all that. So you can see, once you get to my channel, you see join, click on that, you see all the possibilities that you can be a bronze member, silver member, gold member. And I'm thinking of adding one more, maybe like premium or something like that. So let's see how that goes. It's the channel is just about to get more exciting, and I'm excited about that, really. Okay. If you have not, of course, the minimum you can do is to subscribe, because I mean nothing has changed. Everything you've had access to, you will always have access to that, even if you're a regular subscriber. So no worries. So subscribe, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so you can always get alerted each time a new video is released. And for those who have subscribed already, thank you so much. Without you, I probably maybe not doing well. I don't know, like, but without you, having you around is such a blessing indeed. And we have so many things to do together. It's really going to be very interesting as more things come up on the channel. So be sure again to like and share so that more people can have access to this content we have going on here. Share with your friends, share with your children, share with your brothers and sisters, because these are very in demand, high in demand skills these days. Till I come your way again, keep doing data right. Bye.